Hey, what's up, guys? It is Ben 10,000 YGO, your friendly neighborhood Yu-Gi-Oh superhero. So I decided I want to go ahead and make this kind of like weird video, I guess you could say. I had this funny thought about some of the cards in the game that have really unnecessary limitations. So I decided I wanted to go ahead and do a video talking about cards in the game that I think, like, I want to give you guys 10 cards that I think in the game could have been made stronger and they would have zero negative impact on the game. And that Konami needlessly made these cards have these weird, like, I want to say, these weird, like, catches for their abilities. Like to use their effects, the drawbacks to their effects do not match, in my opinion, the payoff for using them. So I think that the payoff is good, but the drawback is frankly too slow, or it's the cost of using this okay or these decent effects is too high. So let's go ahead and we're gonna start off with this very weird list of mine. Starting off with a lot of these cards, by the way, are gonna have a lot of nostalgia to them. Just giving you FYI. So a lot of these cards are, some of them will have some reference to like newer product and all that stuff, but I just want to let you guys know ahead of time that you're going to see a lot of like older cards here. All right, so the first card that I think that Konami made too many drawbacks for is the Sorcerer of Dark Magic. To summon this card, you have to tribute 2 level 6 or higher spellcaster type monsters, and this card can't be normal summoned. So this is one of the, and the thing about this card is this card negates trap cards, which is kind of funny when you think about it, because this card just really, the drawback to this card is too high. The decks that you would want to ideally play this against, realistically, especially when you think about the modern game, or even at the modern game when this card is coming out, in my opinion, just like, all right, so for example, here's what I'm getting at, right? When this card came out, cards like Jinzo was already a legal card, right? So the thing about it was, like, Jinzo was a 1 sacrifice summon and all trap cards are negated. And this guy, I get that he's big. He's a level 9, he's a really big spellcaster. But the thing about him is like, why 2 level 6s? Why not 1 level 6? You know what I mean? Like, do a climb like that. That would have made this card a little more fair, in my opinion. Like, if you just summoned 1 level 6 spellcaster, and then the next turn you could, because it's special summon, then you could tribute to summon this. I don't know. That's just, this card just feels to me like the drawbacks and the payoff is too, like, yes, he's a really powerful spellcaster. I get that. 3,200 attack is nothing to scoff at. But he would not, I don't think he would have seen, I think he would have seen more play if the drawback had been 1 level 6 spellcaster or higher spellcaster, or if the drawback had been, you know, I don't think he would have seen much more play than if that had been a matching drawback for what he does. Like negating, activating an activated effect that negates trap cards just isn't really all that powerful. And there's a lot of cards in the game, like, he's not unaffected by traps. The opponent can still just, okay, I activate another trap, negate that, like a counter trap, for example. So, and destroy this guy. So this card was, he's powerful, but the cost of summoning him is way too high. And so that's my thoughts on this first one here. The next card is, now we're going to go over something a little more, shall we say, Kaiba based, is Blue Eyes Alternative White Dragon. Now this one's a little different. The thing about using his effect, blowing up a card effect, blowing up a monster and not being able to attack, that's a great drawback for using an effect like that, in my opinion. Like, okay, well, I can't attack with the dragon because I blew it up with the effect. I think that's completely fair. The drawback effect, in my opinion, is the only being able to summon this guy once per turn by revealing a Blue Eyes, and he can't be normal summoner set either, just like the previous card. So that's the thing that bothers me about this card, is like summoning it from the hand by revealing it. Like, why did that have to be limited to a one-time thing? The Blue Eyes deck it's not as powerful as it should be, in my opinion. And it's one of the reasons why is because of this card. And I think that Konami made a very ridiculous drawback for summoning it. I think you should have been able to summon more than one of this if you had it. But that's just my opinion. It has a drawback that it can't attack when it does the blow up thing. So I feel like that would be fair, and I think Blue Eyes would still see the same amount of play that they would see today, even if that drawback was removed. Let's go on to number 3 in the list. We have Orbitallander. Now, this card is another special summonable monster that can't be normal summoned. But my issue with this one actually is the weird thing about his summoning condition, well, actually, it isn't even his summoning condition. It's the drawback of his destruction effect. So the thing is, you send the top 3 cards to your graveyard, and in order for that effect to destroy one card, in order for that effect to resolve, the monsters in your graveyard have to all have different names and stay that way, even after he does the mill effect. I don't think that was necessary. I think having him be like, oh, you have to have 5 different monsters in the graveyard just to summon him, and no repeats, was more than enough of an effect to just to get him on the field. Was enough of a drawback. And of course, this card came out with Fairy Tale Snow, so that wasn't as big a problem as it used to be, because you could activate this card, pay the cost, you know what I mean, and then just chain Fairy Tale Snow to get rid of any double names, that kind of thing. And that way that you could make sure he could resolve back when he was seeing more play. And that's all well and good, but now, I still feel like that drawback of still needing to make sure that no 2 monsters had the same name to resolve the effect, that's an issue to me that I think that Konami should errata this card and make it just a little stronger. I think that it's still going to see the same amount of play that it would, but I think that it would see otherwise, but it would see more play. It would be a better card in the decks that would still play it. Alright, number 4 on my list of cards that should be stronger is Blazing Mars, another anime/manga based card. Basically, the issue with this card is you banish 3 other monsters in the graveyard, you special summon this card, but then you can't special summon for the rest of the turn. Why? The thing about his burn effect I find annoying, sure. Maybe they were worried about that, but they didn't need to even give him the burn effect, to be honest. He could have just destroyed stuff. Or they could have made that effect a hard once per turn. The ability to, which I think actually is, it's a hard once per turn, but the ability to not special summon even further after the fact, that's an unnecessary effect in my opinion. This card, for being a 26 attack monster, it's not really all that powerful, and it's limitation of the player who plays it to, okay, I'm done special summoning for the turn, I think was a dumb drawback that wasn't necessary for a card that I don't think wouldn't see a lot of play, even if it didn't have that drawback. And its burn effect requires you to blow up all your own monsters, basically, so it's just not worth it to use it. And it's a send, it's not a destroy, so you don't. So this card wouldn't even combo in a dinosaur deck or something. So that's just another thing. This card has a lot of unnecessary drawbacks. All right, so the next card we're going to be talking about is another Yu-Gi based card, and it's unnecessary drawbacks more come from its rule links than the card itself. And that card is the Eye of Tomius. Now, it's been ruled that it's not actually a Dark Magician card. It's treated as, the thing about it is because it says target a Dark Magician monster you control and fusion summon a fusion monster from the extra deck, that line means it doesn't count as a Dark Magician card, and I find that to be completely unfair. The Dark Magician deck already has so many drawbacks, and frankly, especially if you watch my last list, if you got rid of a certain problematic fusion monster, then this card could be errated to be better. In my opinion, this card actually needs to be better. It should be searchable in Dark Magicians. That's how I feel about it. There's a certain card in the game, and there's another card that's later on this list, that I think that should be errated, but if that errata wasn't going to happen, this errata should. Because then at least that you could play this card, search it with Rod, turn a Dark Magician into something like Dark Paladin, or the Dark Cavalry, or you could turn it into the Dark Magician, the Dragon Knight, and you would have at least a decent Dark Magician card on the field. So, frankly, that's how I feel about it. This card should count as a Dark Magician card, and the fact that it isn't, I think is annoying and a bad call on Konami and or the judges who made that call. That's just how I feel about it. I'm not disputing that that's the reality, by the way. I'm just saying that I think that's a bad call. It should count as a Dark Magician card. But so what I would do is I would say target one. I would errata this card, so it says target one Dark Magician / or Dark Magician girl monster you control, and then just there you go, done. Now it'll count as a Dark Magician or Dark Magician girl card, and then that would just solve all the problems. But you know, and allow a deck that is not very good but does have a lot of really cool functionality and nostalgia attached to it to actually be playable. I'm not talking, because by the way, none of these erratas would make Dark Magicians like broken. The same would be for Blue Eyes or decks that would play Orbitallander or Mars. These just would allow these decks to be a little more playable and allow people to keep up with modern decks, as they should in my opinion. The next thing is we have Solar Wind Jammer. This one is kind of a funny one. If you control no monsters, you special summon this card, but its original attack becomes halved. During the standby phase, increase this card's level by 1, and there can be only one Solar Wind Jammer on the field. That last effect that says there can only be one, that is the effect I don't like. I don't see why this card needed to say it can only have one Solar Wind Jammer on the field. My guess is they were afraid of you machine duping it and getting a Cyber Dragon Infinity really easy, but truth be told, this card is like a going first card that would be... This card was going to see play in Cyber Dragons anyway, because especially when the Cyber Dragon deck was... Because I believe this card actually comes in that structure deck, if I recall correctly. Basically, this is just one of those cards that would let you go first and make Cyber Dragon Infinity or Nova as a card, because you could just go, okay, free summon the Windjammer, go for Zwei, and then you could... Zwei would change its level to 5, and then boom, now you have Cyber Dragon Nova, climb to infinity. So I really feel like the Solar Windjammer being a machine dupe target would not have caused any problems. It would just be another card that would be a machine dupe target, which we have tons in the game. So, and they don't cause problems, and neither would this. And Cyber Dragons can already do what this card was being preemptively stopped from doing, which was just being another Cyber Dragon target, which now, since we have so many Cyber Dragon cards, that drawback was so not needed. Alright, so the next one's going to be one that I think a lot of players or a lot of my followers won't be surprised by. And that is, I think that Gillosaurus shouldn't give your opponent a free monster. It should just be a free summonable dinosaur. I don't like the drawback that it gives your opponent a monster. The only thing that I would do different is make it to where, like, maybe you can't have... you can only special summon one Gillosaurus that way a turn or something like that, just to make it so it's not too tough. But the idea here is that, like, I don't really like that it gives your opponent a monster. It's very much in the same vein of cards like One Day of Peace or, you know, these cards have really good effects, but the drawbacks don't match, and this is just one of them. Like, oh yeah, they could have just made me a free special summonable dinosaurs in a typing of deck that has really crappy cards. I'm sorry. I love the dinosaur deck, alright? It's one of my favorite decks. But let's face it, the dinosaur typing as a whole does not have a lot of really good support, and I'm sorry to say it, but Gillosaurus didn't need that drawback. So it should have just been like, oh yeah, free summonable dinosaur, and that should have been the end of it, but I guess Konami was afraid of this card. Of course, also you have to remember this card is a very old card actually, and I guess they were afraid of you using it to summon big monsters too easily. So I guess that was the idea of the drawback, but I don't think it was necessary. The The next card that I have is another one of Yugi's cards. I know so many of Yugi's cards have made it on this list. I'm sorry, guys. The next one we'll try to avoid main protagonist cards, or at least Yugi's cards. If you guys like the video enough for us to do a second one, is Eternal Soul. This card has one drawback that I don't like, and I feel like it was unnecessary. And it's the drawback that it takes out the whole field with it when it goes. I think, look, the card's good. It makes Dark Magicians unaffected. It can special summon a Dark Magician or add Dark Magic attack and or Thousand Knives. And that's all great. That's 3 really good effects. But the drawback wasn't necessary because of the deck that it's in. If Eternal Soul was a card in Dinosaurs or Infernobles or Drytron or Orchest or Sky Strikers, then I could see why that would need a drawback like that. But Konami put this card in Dark Magicians, the deck that is supposed to be centered around a non-effect monster. And I feel like if you're gonna make decks that are centered around monsters that don't have effects, their support cards shouldn't have this level of a drawback to using them. I'm sorry, but Dark Magician doesn't even, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's 2,500. It's not even really that big of a monster. Like, if this card included, like, oh yeah, and the Dark Magician can't be destroyed by battle, that might be something worth making this card have that level of drawback too. Because then it's like, oh yeah, Dark Magician equals invincible. Sure. And then make that drawback. But this card doesn't make the Dark Magician invincible. It just makes the Dark Magician playable at best. As a card, so I really don't like that has that drawback, and I don't think that drawback of blowing up all the monsters on my side of the field was a necessary drawback, and I think that Konami should errata the card and have that removed. It's 2021, and nostalgia cards shouldn't have this bad of a drawback. That's what I said. I said what I said. Another card that is another Yugi card, but it's not one that's in the Dark Magician deck, thankfully. And this is since we're getting close to the end of this list, is Curry Bandit. The thing that I don't like about this card is you have to wait till the end phase to use it. Even in the time where it was being played, like Lightsworn, Burning Abyss, these kinds of things were using this card, but it's so slow. It doesn't need to be slow. This card should be just summon, tribute, boom, do the mill. That should be the end of it. But unfortunately, Konami put a whole, you have to wait till the end phase to do it, so you can't actually use any of the cards that you send off, really. And yes, you get to add the Excavated Spell or Trap, but like I said, what's it going to do on your opponent's turn? Nothing. Unless it's a hand trap, like Infinite Impermanence or something, then it might do something. Might. But you have to realize that in this day and age, we have cards of, like, DD Crow or whatever, so, and things like that. So they'll snipe out all the good cards you'll get before you get a chance to use them. If you have anything in the graveyard that's gonna give you any kind of bonus. So I feel like this card is just too slow. It's also gonna get negated before you even get a chance to use it. So I think that, honestly, it would get negated before you even got a chance to use it, even if it didn't have an end phase wait. Like, if you just summoned it and could activate it right then and there, I mean, Ash Blossom, you lose. You wasted your normal summon for nothing. So I honestly feel like this card didn't need the drawback of waiting till the end phase. And the last card actually is going to go with something that is in the new structure deck, the Ice Barrier structure deck, Prior of the Ice Barrier. So he has the ability to special summon himself, but if you do that, you can't special summon a level 5 or higher monster that turn if you summon that way, which I'm like, why? Why would you make a limitation like that in a deck that likes to synchro summon? Like, granted, this card 9 times out of 10, if it's being used to, like, make Totally Awesome or something like that. But this card, the Ice Barrier deck in general is supposed to be a synchro based deck, but so that drawback is highly unnecessary and highly I don't know. Konami just sometimes makes cards with drawbacks that don't need to be there, and that's just one of them. You were literally limiting the power level of a deck that for, the better part of a decade has not been a good deck and has had very little practical application. Like, very few of the Ice Barrier cards, even before this structure deck came out, were seeing play. Here and there they might, due to things like typing or their level happens to be convenient. But outside of that, the deck just doesn't do anything. So this limitation on this card wasn't necessary. So that's my list, guys. These are all the cards. These are 10 cards that I think that Konami should have made stronger than they are. So here's what I want you to do, guys. If you liked this video, leave a thumbs up. Let me know in the comments below if there's any cards that you think that Konami should have made stronger than they actually are. And maybe if enough of you guys like this video, I'll make another one. Anyway, guys, I'm Bandit yugioh. If you're new here, consider subscribing. And if you don't like the video, I'll turn you into a Karibo. I'll do it. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.